Welcome to Machine Minds, where technology and humanity meet. I'm your host, Greg Terrusian, founder of Samson Rose, a recruiting and search business focused on the robotics and AI industries. The Machine Minds show is where we dive deep into the intricate world of robotics and artificial intelligence. As a staffing industry leader with a passion for the frontiers of technology, I'm pleased to be bringing you intimate conversations with the founders, investors, and trailblazers who are at the heart of the AI and robotics revolution. In each episode, we dig into their journeys, the applications of the products they're working on, and the breakthroughs that are shaping our future. Join us as we explore how these machine minds are transforming the way we live, work, and understand our world. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a tech enthusiast, or just curious about this amazing field, you'll learn something new with each episode. Let's delve into the extraordinary. Let's delve into Machine Minds. Hello and welcome to Machine Minds. I'm your host, Greg Terrusian, founder of Samson Rose, your robotics talent search partner. And on today's episode, we are joined by Canon Reeves, CTO and co-founder of Pipedream. Thanks for being here today on the show, Canon.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Let's jump into it. So I always start with our guests' background. So can we go into your journey and background before starting Pipedream?
Absolutely, yeah. I've always been obsessed with robots since I was a kid, basically. Did all the robotics competitions and things. And when I got to college, I thought I'd be a roboticist, and that's all I'd ever be. And I got introduced to startups and kind of all the fun that comes with taking technology and applying it to solving real problems in the real world. And I ended up dropping out of college to start my first company called More Technologies. We made it a modular robotics platform that taught kids STEM skills from coding to CAD, 3D printing. We built that business for a few years and eventually exited to one of the larger players in the space, Sphero. And then, after that, I met Garrett and came on board to Pipedream. But most of my career in life has been spent around robotics and particularly modular robotics.
That's very cool. So it sounds like it was just something that was in you. There wasn't any particular moment or pivotal moment or thing that happened that you were like, wow, robots? Or was it like a movie or being around parents or friends that were in it? Where can you kind of pin it back to that robots was like your passion?
I wish I could explain it or know why it took hold of me, but it just did from a young age when I first started doing it. I did first robotics my freshman year of high school, and that was just just from that moment on. I could never explain why, but it consumed my every thought, and it's something I'm just super passionate about.
Love that. That sparks another thought for me, because I've had these conversations in the past when I used to be internal, leading talent acquisition teams and thinking about how do we create like the pipeline of talent coming into the hardware space, obviously robotics and things like that. And sometimes it's like awareness, especially for underrepresented people, areas, schools, things like that, that might never know what it's like to be in a tech company or engineering or anything to do with hardware, and bring that awareness to them, whether it's tours of campuses, doing workshops, guest speakers, whatever it is. How important do you think that is, one, to the ecosystem, and two, that awareness that brought you into the robotics world?
Yeah, I think it's huge. My dad is a truck driver and my mom's a school teacher, and I had no idea that this was kind of a path that was open to me until I'm happy to be introduced to it through school. And I spent, the first part of my career in that first company basically trying to expand the number of students that got that same opportunity. I don't think it's for everybody, and I don't think it should be. I think it's something that, but I think it's something that people should at least be exposed to when they're young, to see if this can be for them before they kind of have any preconceived notions about it or about, themselves and kind of taking themselves out of it. So I think it's huge. And it's an expensive thing to get into. And so we spent a lot of time trying to lower that floor, and make it easier to get into, and make it easier to kind of grow into and learn about.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Yeah, it's lowering that barrier to entry to people and just opening their eyes and making them aware of what's possible in their career. Like you said, truck driver and school teacher, a lot of people are like, oh, well, my parents were an engineer, so it's in my family. But if it never was, how would you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. So let's transition. You said you met your co-founder, started Pipedream. What was the inspiration behind founding it?
Yeah, it was
And
really
if you can, like, give everyone an overview of what Pipedream actually does.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Pipedream is we are an underground delivery company. So we build underground delivery robots that enable this future that we call hyperlogistics. We believe that eventually delivery will be autonomous, and not just delivery, but also sending things back. And we created a way to do that that is the exact same as how we do the delivery of water, sewage, stormwater, Wi-Fi, electricity in our cities, which is underground. We looked at kind of what was out there, and we felt like there needed to be a future where delivery was invisible, fast, low cost, and didn't change how our cities were. It's like we didn't really want to take up human space. We wanted it to be just totally invisible. So yes, we created Pipedream.
So cool. So cool. And the initial challenges, I'm sure, this, forgive me, it might sound to some people like a moonshot kind of idea. You're saying, hey, we're doing the same thing as electricity, as water, etc. But it's a whole new way. Right now everyone's like, well, we're used to our FedExes and Amazon trucks driving down our street every day. Were there any initial challenges that you faced starting such an innovative tech company and like new way of thinking?
Absolutely. We named it Pipedream for a reason. We kind of wanted to take that joke before anybody else could give it. It is crazy, and there's a lot of pieces in every step of the way. We were told it's not possible, and so we decided let's go make it happen. And the reality is that cities and there's this sort of like knowledge in our society on how to install pipes like this. And so what we did is say, well, let's put smarts inside of those pipes. And we kind of married these two pieces and we made it real. So we actually just recently announced a almost mile-long pilot in Peachtree Corners, Georgia, where we went alongside an existing city road in the right-of-way, connecting a retail center to an office space. So yeah, we set out and we made it real. It's been a long journey, but we made it.
That's amazing. Congrats. That's huge. Huge milestone. How long have you guys been in business?
Since 2021.
Wow. That's pretty quick, to be honest with you. Yeah. And are you working with any partners or anything like that right now? Any strategic partners, customers, people interested?
Yeah, we're working with several in a few different industries. Unfortunately, I can't share the names, but
No problem.
it's very easy to get stuck in the lab, and we've been very intentional about working with customers and solving real problems from day one because we can go in our corner and work in our lab and create something, but who knows if that actually works for people unless you're working with them constantly. And so our partners have been hugely valuable. I can't wait until we can share and launch those things.
That's so great. And honestly, that's one of the repeated themes through having these interviews with people. And even prior to that, speaking to founders when in my career has been working with industry, working with customers instead of being in stealth mode and creating really cool tech and no one wants it. So it's a very mature, aware and forward thinking approach, which I'm sure your investors are very happy about, but then also customers as well. And you guys, because you don't want to go down a completely wrong path and then turn around and be like, well, we zigged when we should have zagged 12 months ago and now we're out of capital.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's fun for the customers too, because this is something that is super innovative that people just don't see every day. This is kind of new and far out there. And so they get the chance to come work with something new and exciting, but they also get to bring their special expertise to the product and shape it into something that is truly valuable for them. And so it's a really rewarding feedback loop. My favorite days are the days where we're talking to their customers. That's just like one of the best parts of the job.
Love that. I'm sure there's also that excitement of the futuristic aspect of it, because you can just I'm thinking anyway of like, if one was local to me, regardless of what the brand was, it's like futurist. You want to try it, you want to use it just because it's there, and you're like, let's see how this works, and then it becomes the norm after that. You just become used to it, and that's going to be your preferred method, especially if it's so quick.
Yeah.
How do you move from the idea phase to actual product development? Can you talk us through those steps? Because it seems pretty quick for you guys.
Yeah, we took a very iterative approach. This is at its core, the robots in the pipe are really simple. What makes it hard is how you handle what we call portals, which are the above ground sort of like kiosks that people interface with when they get their things or when they put things into it. And so creating a unified system that is both easy and fast to install, reliable, low cost per linear foot when you think about kind of installing this through a city, but also high throughput and capable of being expanded and built upon, because you don't know that it is, at the end of the day, kind of like a modular system. It needs to work at a parking lot scale and a city scale, and every city is different. There are these living, breathing things that you have to be able to adapt to and optimize around. And so most of our time was honestly spent iterating through system concepts and getting our base modular rules as simple as possible. So like when you think about Lego, what makes Lego so powerful is that base brick is just so simple. And because of that, you can make very simple things, but you can also build the Lego Death Star, this crazy thing. And that only works when your modular rules are simple enough. And so most of our development time in the first sort of year and a half was about testing and creating those first simple modular rules. And then from then on, it's really been, how do we expand on those rules and add these key components to the system? So yeah, it's been a very iterative, fast development process. Our turnaround times for a robot is like pretty much a month.
Wow.
So we can bang out hardware pretty quickly.
That's very cool. So it sounds like, your flagship product, what you're actually going after is very different to a lot of other logistics companies. And you said the robots are pretty simple, but it's just how you incorporate everything into the system, which is like the overarching complexity of it all, right? Have you had any, it might be too early stage, but have you had any pushback or negative opinions from other logistics companies or people in the space?
Honestly, no. We believe that there is a kind of this future of autonomous delivery that includes multiple modalities. And what we've done is we've kind of solved, how do you get things in and out of a building into the parking lot, which is a problem that every other modality has. And so what we found is that there is this very collaborative, positive future. We've got friends in basically all the other delivery companies, and like we're all rooting for each other. So yeah, it's been really positive, and that's been a fun part of it.
Love that. Okay, cool. So this isn't your first company. It's not your first rodeo. Is there anything like, from starting a company, it's obviously a massive undertaking, starting and running, let's be real, and you've done it twice now. What key lessons have you learned about entrepreneurship in the tech industry from doing this? You've obviously had the educational route, and then now you're doing this, which is more commercial and partnership driven. Is there any insights that you can share?
I think as a robotics founder specifically, it is really easy to get stuck thinking, I just have to finish the robot. I've just got to stay in the lab and finish the tech. In both companies, we were selling the product before it was fully finished, so that we could, one, have pull from customers and know we're doing the right thing, but two, almost like have that thing that's pushing us to go build towards. And it looks a little different for both companies, but yeah, I would say prioritizing sales and letting sales lead product development is, I think, the best way to create something really hard like this.
Really?
And the second thing is just hiring and finding extremely smart people to go and execute on this is just so critical, because they can just run so fast, and they're just, every single smart person you bring in makes everybody else around them better, and they kind of act as like multipliers for their business. So finding smart people is just the key.
I love that. I want to dive into that in a second. Obviously, that's very close to my heart, being from the recruiting space. But go back to, having sales drive product development. I want to unpack that a little bit, because we've obviously touched on the importance of working with your customers and partners and getting feedback and stuff like that. But what does that look like for you guys? Because some people would be like, well, we're going to sell a service, or we're going to sell our product or what we've already built to them, and then that's what we're going to generate revenue from. But it sounds like you're doing this dance between selling and product development and iterating and working in partnerships, which sounds crucial and key, but I want people to really understand what that looks like.
I think what enables it is having a very modular tech stack and product that can be bended and adapted to different needs without revamping the entire thing. So the more concrete example is all of the underground stuff stays consistent for whatever customer, whether it is a quick serve restaurant, a grocer, or a citywide network. That underground infrastructure and piping and robots are all the same. So you kind of get to share the development work. When we look at entering a new market and really serving a new business case, it usually just requires us to change that above ground portal. And so what we can do is start to talk with that customer and say, what do you want? How do we fit into your space? What are your needs? And then we can just focus on adding that one key piece. And that allows us to do that quickly enough to kind of work with these customers on a time frame that works for them. But then that information feeds back to the broader system, and like we kind of learn things as a whole. So it's a bit of it requires the ability to context switch very quickly and develop sort of multiple products in parallel. And we have to do things like we find ways to carry over components from one product to another. So a very specific example is the robots are underground, but they don't go above ground. They just stay on their plane. They're kind of like a train. But we have these totes that are kind of like sort of like our shipping containers. And so we have lift mechanisms that pull those out of the robot and place them on things and output them to customers. And so what we try to do is use the same lift mechanism and the same tote grabbing mechanism across all of our products. And so you find ways to expedite the development process and allow you to serve multiple totally unique customers and markets with a very small team and with a lot of the same pieces of the product.
Nice. Okay, so two things on that before we jump into the smart people I haven't forgotten. One is there a size limitation to
Yes.
the package? Yeah?
Yes.
So what's the sweet spot here? What are you really trying to do with the delivery?
Yeah, you're trying to optimize two pieces of the system. One is your linear cost per foot, because you want to be able to go across the city and as far as you can. So you want to reduce that cost per foot as much as you can, but you also want to have stuff that people want to get delivered. And so what we've kind of centered around is being able to deliver in the high 90% of grocery items and commerce items. And naturally, kind of food delivery falls into that as well. So we are able to do things like full packages of paper towel and toilet paper, and like you can fit plenty of stuff. So there's not really much, like, you're not going to fit a kayak through it or a TV, but pretty much anything you'd get from the grocery store or, order off Amazon, you'd be able to.
Perfect. And you kind of answered my second question, which was, can you share more about like the customers that you're working with? So it sounds like restaurants, fast food, fast casual kind of places, the Amazon's e-commerce, grocery store kind of aspect as well. Are there any other use cases here?
Those are the main ones we're focused on. We've been approached about other kind of industries and use cases, but we've kind of realized that we want to stay focused on those initially. We think there's other ways that our tech can be applied, but by focusing on partners that allow us to build a network in a city, we can create more value for a single installation. So our goal is that we install this throughout a city, and you're able to connect supply side partners, the grocers, the restaurants, to different districts in a city. And so the more supply side partners you have, the more you can sort of like spread out the cost of that infrastructure among multiple people, and the more volume you can get on that network, because it's really a volume game.
Yeah.
So yeah, just the more partners we can work with, the better, and kind of seeing the effects of that.
And those are all very high volume partners, I'm sure. I mean, I just look at my house.
Yeah.
And how much comes through Instacart and DoorDash and everything, and Amazon every day. So, okay, very cool. How do you charge? I don't know if that's something that you can share or that you've thought or fully fleshed out, but for a partner to utilize the system, or even for an end user customer, is there a specific charge per delivery, or is that cost owned by the partners?
The interesting thing about making a utility is that there's a lot of different financial models that you can use. You can look at existing utilities. At the end of the day, it's mostly correlated with usage and just charging kind of to send things. And because it's all autonomous and electric and fully enclosed, it's very cheap for us to do per delivery. It's really that install cost that you are amortizing over a long period of time. So it looks a little different based on the install and the version of the product, but at the end of the day, it all kind of comes down to we get things from A to B, and we charge people to get things from A to B.
Makes sense. I can see like an ideal use case is a new master plan community that they're going to put their grocery store in, and they've got like their delivery hubs and all of that stuff. And you put this in from the get-go, and now you're, I don't know, residencies of the future with this Pipedream already built in, which is very cool. I'd love to see that.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the smart people that you mentioned beforehand, because I'm obviously in the recruiting space. I know how important it is to have great people on your team at any stage of the business, but it's so important at an early stage, right? And there's challenges with recruiting for a startup as well. So how do you firstly, the importance of building a strong team. I want to understand that from your side of it. And you touched on having smart people being multipliers and letting them run with things. But how do you go about hiring and attracting people as well?
It's a hard thing it's probably one of the hardest things about running the business is a consistent way to kind of find those smart people. We've done a lot through just kind of getting out there and talking about what we're doing on Twitter and just kind of letting smart people naturally gravitate towards that and find that. But obviously you see some kind of like caps of how many people you can hire that way. So we've experimented with a lot of different ways to do it. And I think kind of what we're really looking for is people who aren't just smart, but are also great to work with. We have a policy of no smart assholes. We all love working together and we all kind of contribute our pieces. But, we really look for people who are just experts at their craft, but also can think very high level and almost act as a product manager for their individual piece. Because there are so few of us and so many products that we're developing, each person really does need to be able to own the entire product, not just their kind of subsystems and mechanisms, and drive forward the features and requirements based off their understanding of the customer and, really push forward their product. So we look for people who are driven, high ownership, can understand how their product affects the business, but also just great engineers and can implement.
Yeah, that's so key. That it sounds like everyone has some sort of involvement or interface or awareness of your customer. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how big's the team right now?
Team's about 15.
Nice. And you're located where?
We are in Austin, Texas.
Very cool. Okay, so smart engineers in Austin. You heard it here. Keep a lookout. Very cool. And in terms of innovation, because it's obviously an innovative project, you're saying people owning their part for the overall product, for what their customers needs. I'm sure like creativity must be involved in innovation, but you've also got this deliverable element as well. How do you balance that, the innovation, creativity, as well as, hey, we're not a research lab, we're a commercial business?
Yeah. I think keeping a heartbeat of the company that is like, what's the heartbeat of shipping hardware and how quickly do we move? And as a culture, what is a reasonable amount of time it takes to develop? And when do you say, you know what, this is at 80%. I'm going to learn so much more by ordering and creating than I will by just kind of, taking forever to develop it. So we balance it by defaulting to moving very quickly. And the goal is to compress and have as many iteration cycles as possible because we think that just gets you to a better product faster.
Nice. Love that. And what about growth plans for you guys? Do you know how big you want to be getting in the short term? Are you planning to be in Austin the whole time? I know you mentioned your test track, your test facility isn't actually there. So can you expand a bit on those two things?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just announced this last week that we announced our $13 million seed round.
Wow,
and so
congrats.
thank you. Yeah, with that, we are bringing on several more engineers, all mostly located in Austin. We'll have one position in Atlanta, but mostly in Austin, looking for primarily mechanical, software, and firmware engineers.
Amazing. That's a very healthy seed round. That's awesome. Yeah. Can you share who your investors are?
Yeah. Starship, Mylan, and Cortado Ventures are some of our three largest. And we are super blessed to have them. Honestly, they're extremely helpful. Getting the right investors is like a big game changer.
So key. Let's talk about that actually, because, from an entrepreneurial insights point of view, stumbling on my own words here, especially for first-time founders or early-stage founders, maybe people going after a problem or industry for the first time that might not be aware. You might have started a software company before, now you're going to a hardware company. Having those right investors, people who understand the space and everything, is crucial and key. Let's talk about that and your experience, because I'm sure a misstep at this early stage can be so detrimental.
Yeah, fortunately, we haven't had any missteps or bad people. We've been pretty good with picking the right partners, but it's been so helpful to have partners who see the full vision, but understand that there's a lot of work to get there. And so they'll plug in and help give advice regularly, but also connect us to potential customers and be honest with us when they think what we're doing is the right or the wrong decision. And just having that honest third party who has a vested interest in the success of the company and also in us as founders. We pick partners who believe in us and who are really, kind and supportive of us as people. So yeah, it's nice to have people rooting in your corner.
Yeah, I bet. And it's not just money, right? Like you said, it's the advice, the introductions, the guidance, because people can do, self-fund if they're in a position, remortgage your house or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever crazy thing is, do friends and family rounds, but that's only going to get you so far. And it's just money at the end of the day. And there's so much more to running a business, building a company than just the capital involved.
Absolutely.
So let's look forward. Where do you see the future of robotics and AI headed in the next 5 years in general?
I think there's a renewed interest in kind of the funding ecospheres in funding hard problems. I think that there will continue to be opportunities in software, but I do think that a lot of people are realizing that the larger and sort of harder opportunities are in hardware, but all the low-hanging fruit's kind of been taken in software. So I think there's going to be a lot more of a push in robotics and AI, and I think it's very interesting how the two play together. I'm very curious to see how it plays out. I'm mostly a mechanical engineer, so I really like dumb mechanical systems that happen to be robots. But I think that the humanoid space is going to be super interesting to watch, and just to see how different robotics companies use existing hardware and unlock new ability to solve problems just through software. Like, that's going to be really cool to see.
Yeah. Can I ask something maybe a little controversial, or it's like everyone has
Go for it.
humanoids? I'm glad you brought it up, but they tend to be polarizing at the moment in the industry, as you know. And there's the camp of like, why do we need legs? Let's just put everything on wheels. There's a camp of, well, we're just over engineering something that doesn't need to be done. What else? There's there's only going to be certain winners because they have a use case or the capital. We're still 10 years out, etc. I'm curious to hear because I have a humanoid client and I'm very excited for what they're doing, but there's obviously very polarizing and opposite views on this space.
My personal views as a roboticist, I think it's really exciting that it's getting funding and people are working on these problems. I think it's super cool. As an entrepreneur, I don't see it yet. I don't see the use cases yet. And so I'm kind of in the camp of like, I don't think they will be, I think there'll be some players that stick around. I think it'll be kind of like the self-driving car space where you see a lot of new entrants, and then the people with the really deep pockets are the ones who are going to last through the winter and like keep going, and eventually maybe they'll create some value and use them. But, personally, I don't get it yet, but I'm hopeful to be proven wrong.
Yeah, it's true. I think I had a VC on earlier in the seasons, shall I say, of the show, Fady from Cybernetics, and he was very. I loved what he said about it, and he was like, the technology is still so far off, but he basically gave caution to investors that are new in the space. It's like when people rush to invest in self-driving cars or crypto or whatever it was, and you don't know the market and don't know it enough. It's not all of robotics. I don't get burnt by that and then think all robotics is bad. Like, really know what you're investing in. And who else? I had another investor on, I don't think the episode's out yet though, but talking about how there'll be key winners and the ones that have, Teslas of the world, they have unlimited capital and a place to use the robots, right? Or there's some that have been doing this forever, Agility, Apptronic, Boston Dynamics. They've been going for so long, and you spent so much money, and it's not just going to be something that happens overnight. But
yeah. And at the end of the day, it's about like, can you solve a problem with it that the customer's going to pay for, and it's reliable enough that it's not more of a headache for them. And that's the thing I'm interested to see. I've seen a lot of really cool demo videos, and I think what we've seen over the last 2 years is, I've personally been surprised by how much you can do with even existing hardware, and how much of it is really limited by software. And so now there's this clear wave of how software is going to be improved. We don't know how far this wave is going to take us, but I'm very excited to start seeing some of these companies producing real revenue and applying their tech, even if it's imperfect, and solving problems for customers. That's the point when I would really start to change my opinion on it. And I think it'll come. I think some people will get there.
For sure. I'm excited to see that. But yeah, to your point, it's got to be commercially viable. Otherwise, it's just another research project.
Yeah.
But it's exciting, it's again like AI, it's brought so many new eyes and interest and press and everything and investment dollars to the space. And the ripple effect of that is, like with AI, it's the rest of the ecosystem is now picking up, and investors are looking at what's beyond just the software. And that's the crucial thing. It's like, how does AI work with robotics and work with hardware to really add value and create real systems?
Absolutely.
Very exciting times, personally. How does Pipedream plan to evolve in the coming years and stay ahead of this rapidly changing industry with different technologies and new things popping up all the time?
We're interesting as a robotics company because we took this thing that was a long tail software problem, which is, autonomous delivery. Both, if you look at the modalities that could do autonomous delivery, you're kind of with self-driving cars, sidewalk robots, and drones. And some of those have, like self-driving cars, this kind of long tail software problem that I think gets solved and is being shown to be solved. But we took the opposite approach and said, well, what if instead of creating a robot that can adapt to any environment, what if we created a fixed environment using known tools and components, and then operated very quickly and very low cost? And so our robots are very cheap and everything's very fast, and there's not really a lot of risk for us of like things getting into the system and in the way. So in a large way, we are very insulated from, not insulated, it's probably the wrong way to say it, but there's not really room for better software to optimize our things anymore, other than potentially different route planning. For us, it's really about how can we just install this in as many places as possible, bring down the cost to install, bring down the cost of our core components, and grow the number of customers that use us. But yeah, in a lot of ways, we're sort of decoupled from the sort of general purpose robotics.
Yeah. You hear about it all the time. It's like the simple systems, the simple approach. That's where the real value is. It's scale, it's implementing it, and then the dual purpose. If you've got multiple different customers or partners that are going to use it, that's where the real value is.
Yeah. And my kind of opinion is that if you have a problem that is large enough, it justifies creating a dedicated solution. And that simple dedicated solution is going to be faster, cheaper, more optimized around that problem. And I think delivery and logistics is absolutely one of those problems. And even if you kind of had the perfect technology for self-driving cars or drones and it didn't have regulatory issues, these things would also, like, if you imagine how many delivery vehicles you see now, that's only going to continue to grow as delivery becomes cheaper and easier. And so our take is that we don't need to be putting more cars on the road. We don't need to be kind of polluting more of our skies. And by moving things underground and making it invisible, the same way that cities are doing with their power lines, we can create a better city and also make things more convenient for customers and reduce emissions and reduce congestion in our streets. So we see a lot of benefits to kind of going this dedicated route. And I think that there's enough volume. And this is, logistics is a massive industry. And it's continuing to grow at this exponential rate. So yeah, we feel good about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's something close to my heart as well from my time at Hyperloop when we were looking at even, larger port operations and stuff like that, or even just, I think about my personal life right now. I live in a master plan community, it's all new build around here and everyone's got kids and all of that stuff. And especially holiday time, you see UPS, USPS, FedEx, everyone coming down and everyone's worried about their kids because these drivers are like reversing around corners. They have to do all of these, like so many deliveries. Even outside of holidays, let's be real, everyone's so reliant on Amazon. But to remove that, even from here, would be huge. And then I think about when I lived in an apartment complex, everyone's getting deliveries into one room. Like if that was autonomous and that was literally at the click of a button and it came in, the waste, the space, everything, the convenience, it's just, it would be amazing.
Yeah, Pipedream is it's a hard problem because it is a retrofit. But if you think about all utilities, they were at some point a retrofit. Like we built cities before we built internet and all these other utilities. And so it is a possible thing, but our cities are going to continue to grow. Like you said, there's going to be more and more master plans. There's going to be more and more apartment buildings coming up. And so for us, it's about finding that balance of how do we plug into the way our cities currently work, but then also be poised to grow with our cities and poised to over time continue to grow as a network through our cities. And just increase access to low cost and low emission delivery.
Love that. Thank you. Okay, so you mentioned the funding, which is great. I know you've got some customers that you can't announce yet, but I guess everyone should watch this space, should be coming soon. I never spoke about that offline, so I'm excited for people to hear about that. Are there any other projects or initiatives that you can share that people should keep an eye out for, or that you're most excited about?
Yeah, man, I really wish I could.
Yeah, I wish you could as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we are. So I probably didn't do a great job explaining earlier the kind of versions of our product and what this practically
Yeah, let's
look
do
like.
that, please.
Yeah. So the end vision is you have a magic drawer in your house, and if you need a screwdriver, you can order a screwdriver, and in a couple of minutes it appears, and you can use it. But instead of like storing that somewhere and forgetting where you put it, you can just put it back in the drawer and send it back, and it goes. And it's like this concept of hyperlogistics, which is like an internet for physical things. That's the North Star for us. But to get there, you have to integrate with the person who's going to send that screwdriver and the person who's going to send your food. And so what we started with is what we call our instant pickup product. And the concept is that we go from the back of house of a quick serve restaurant or a grocery store, and we connect to a kiosk in the parking lot, kind of like a bank tube. And this allows you to more quickly order and then go and pick up your things. You don't have to wait in the drive-thru. You can order ahead to get your fast food. You pull into your kiosk, your portal, you say what spot number you're in, and then boom, your food appears in like 30 seconds because we've stored that order and we deliver it out. So we do that for quick serve restaurants and grocery stores. And yeah, the idea is that we start there, and then those nodes can then connect to a larger system. And so then we start looking at, as the system grows, we can connect different areas of a city. So instead of like driving all the way across town or, wherever you're going to drive to get to that restaurant, if you're just driving to the edge of your neighborhood to pick up your groceries or to pick up your fast food order, or if your gig driver is just going from the edge of your neighborhood into your neighborhood. So that's what we call middle mile or citywide networks. That's a big focus for us right now, is like picking the first city to go do a larger network in. So that's something that's very front of mind for us.
Interesting. Are there any key players, like ideal landscapes, cities, size, anything like that?
Yeah, there's a couple different ones. We take the approach of partnering with cities. We want this to be something that they're excited about and they're pushing for. We want it to be somewhere where there's, obviously enough density and enough volume flowing through, but that's a lot of areas, to be honest. So from there, it's really looking at like what's a good region to do it, and where can we get excitement from our city partners, and then picking a place and going.
That's very cool. All right, great stuff. You had some advice earlier, but before we wrap up, is there any advice for, well, two things, I guess. You came into the robotics industry early on. Any advice for people who are looking to break into that, either as an engineer or entrepreneur? And then outside of that, any advice for aspiring entrepreneurs specifically?
I think for roboticists and people wanting to get into hardware, I would say just start doing it. Most of my stuff was self-taught. I dropped out of school. And you just learn by creating and building and doing. And there are just more and more tools coming out to make it easy to do that, and just start prototyping, playing, and learning. So if the space interests you, just jump right in. Everything is simple when you break it down. It looks complicated and intimidating, but when you really get into it, it's simple and it can be understood by anybody. And then any advice for entrepreneurs, I would say make sure you're working on a problem that you're passionate about. This is it's a hard journey to do a startup. It requires a lot of stressful days and nights, and a lot of long days and nights and weekends. And if it's something that you just wake up on fire for, like I wake up thinking about Pipedream. I go to bed thinking about Pipedream. It's just something that's always in my brain, and I love that. And I think that if you're going to go impact and change some element of the world and create something really hard, it should be something you personally care a lot about, because it's just going to make the journey that much more fun and doable.
Love that. Thank you. That's great advice, and so true. It's so true. You need to be driven, you need to be committed, and you have to be working on it all the time. How important do you think because not everyone has a co-founder, sometimes that comes later on. How important do you think that is to the journey?
Hugely, especially for a problem as hard as Pipedream.
Yeah.
Garrett and I kind of complement each other in great ways. We each represent different sides of the business. So he's also a mechanical engineer, but he's much more focused on sales and investors and business side of things. And I'm much more focused on the tech, but we both kind of meet in the middle on the product side and like really care deeply about our customers, and about creating a product that works well for our customers. So having a co-founder, just like, it allows you to, as an organization, be more excellent at different things and push different things forward. And it just makes the journey a lot easier, because it's a hard journey, and having somebody that understands and can work through it with you and is just kind of a partner there with you the whole time, it just makes it so much better.
Yeah, I bet. Not as lonely.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, look, Canon, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time. Where can people find you, follow you, Pipedream, and hear about all of your updates and announcements?
We are very active on Twitter. I'm pretty active on Twitter too. So Canon Reeves on Twitter, Pipedream Labs on Twitter. And then our website is pipedreamlabs.co. We're hiring engineers right now. So if anybody listening is a very smart engineer, please apply. I'm desperate to find more.
Amazing. All right, great stuff. I'm excited to see what you guys do in the coming months and years. And let's keep in touch.
Great. Thank you so much, Greg.
Thanks again, Canon.